Hello friends, so I'm again back with the Python core concepts and next plan of the tutorials we have to do. So now starting with the basics of Python and core functionalities and concepts of Python to move ahead with it. So today we are going to cover the basics of Python. Why should we use that? What are its advantages and what are the constraints? What are the good features of Python? What type of applications these should be used? So today I'm going to elaborate these things. So Python overview, it's an object-oriented high-level programming language with integrated dynamic semantics and its interpreted language. It supports so many modules and packages. It has so many rich frameworks, as I elaborated in my last video about platform framework and technology. So as you know, any technology needs framework to execute on, so it has a rich set of the frameworks, supported frameworks, where Python can be used to develop an application. So it hides complicated low level details, and it's so quick to develop applications in Python. That's why it's heavily used. It's secured and it's scalable also because it's integration with other technologies, and the it can be scaled very easily. We will cover in when we are doing the practical sessions. So this is a high level overview of Python. Now, what type of applications can be developed in Python? So as you can see in the slide, we can work on web development, games can be developed, machine learning, AI projects, numerical calculation projects, data science and visualizations, desktop GUI, scraping as applications and others. So one of the reasons why Python is heavily used because it's vast vertical it has. It can be used in so many different type of applications where other languages are not supported. So this is one of the reasons why Python is heavily used. As you can see in the list, it's almost used in all type of applications we have. So if you learn Python, you can try your hands on different type of applications. So this is one of the reasons why this is heavily used in the market, right? So please keep me posting if you have any questions or concerns. I will try to answer them in next 24 hours. So now I'm moving ahead with the next section. Then we have, give me a second. Yes. Now we are going to cover why Python, right? Why should we use Python? It's a very common question. Why Python? There are so many other technologies. Why don't we go ahead with them? Why we should use Python? So the core regions, or what what are the core driving features which drive us to use Python? Code is very easy to read, use and maintain. So if you see, the code seems to be very understandable. So initially, when people start coding, the foremost language of preference for them is Python. And the reason being, with the very least effort, you can design your systems. You can create your applications. This is the main advantage what we have with Python in comparison to other technologies. The learning curve is so flexible in it that you very easily can learn the concepts of Python. It supports so many multiple paradigms. Like when you start programming, there are some scenarios where you need procedural programming, object oriented and functional as well. So the Python supports all of them. So it's very easy, or it's very easy to switch for the programmers who has worked on, let's say, procedural programming. They will see familiarity here also. If you have worked on object oriented, you will see familiarity here also. So this is one of the reasons why people jump on Python and find easy to learn. And then we have compatible. One of the important factors is compatible with major platforms. So you name it, all the platforms which you are seeing here majorly are compatible with Python applications. So you can develop your applications on any one of the platform, and that will run over there, right? So like you are seeing that Windows, Linux, Mac OS, free BSD, everything, the what is enlisted is compatible with Python. And this is one of the driving factor why people, run for Python. And then we have the next slide. Python allows us to produce maintainable features in record times with the minimum developers. So what does that mean? This is one of the sayings from one of the popular architects in some form, that this is practically proven that the amount of time it takes to develop any application in Python is minimal. So even most of the companies, let's say when they are moving for the prototyping of the systems, this is favorable language. They have a group of people who used to work on Python, and all the prototypes and those can be designed simply in Python. And once a customer sees the running prototype, so it creates a different impact. So these are the reasons why Python is heavily used in the market. It has a large set of the executables and libraries for whatever you mean it, like visualizations, calculations, logging, test driven development. It has provided you ready made frameworks or the components for it. You just have to use it and configure it, and it will start working for you. Cost effective approach, as you know, as you can see from the top point, since it's fast to develop, the development speed is really faster in Python. So it's cost effective as well, because if you go to implement the same in other technologies, so for sure means there may be some advantages over there, but yes, on the same angle, it takes more time, hence the cost factor is more on those technologies. So based on the requirement or on the points above, we decide whether when we have to use Python. And if you see the some examples of open source Python frameworks, so Python is open source, and similarly the web frameworks where Python applications can be developed, those are also open source. So this is one of the important costing, that when you are developing on a prototype, or when a small firm is working on some projects, you need not to buy any license. You can directly go and create your applications and execute in your business domain. So if you can see, there are so many frameworks like Flash, Django, Pyramid, and we are going to go detail into these frameworks, and what are the driving factors to choose a framework, when should we use what, we will be discussing in our next tutorials. So it simplifies the complexity of software development, because let's say you have to work on visualizations, some visualizations in your project. It has inbuilt library. You simply have to use that, provide the data as it needs, and your UI will be ready. So test driven development, it's important, concern of the architects, that the project should be a test driven, flexible, right? So it has already provided you the mechanism to write your applications in test driven approach. We are not going into detail what's test driven development, but to explain in short, basically what happens in test driven development, we used to write the test cases, and those automated test cases used to execute on runtime, and it provides us the result back whether that test case satisfies the expectation or not. So these are one of the, these are the important factors which force, or which justifies why should we use Python. And this is the graph which is showing, it's taken reference from somewhere. It shows that Python is heavily and one of the most favorable languages by the developers right now. So if you see, the highest, the percentage is given to the Python language. So what it shows basically, most of the beginners, or the other peoples used to, all the the AI machine learning projects, in those projects Python is heavily used. In web development also it's heavily used, and in other type of applications. So giving all these advantages, it sits at the top when when we talk about the programming language. So I hope these concepts make sense, and at least giving you an idea why should we move ahead with Python, right? We will also cover the constraints and everything. And now again, this is the fast, as explained earlier. Python is fast for development. The developers don't take much time. The learning curve is very steep. So we can easily make a team to work on Python if we don't have that capability. And if you see the frameworks, what it has, like Django framework, it provides you so many inbuilt capabilities that you need not to code for those. So it makes the development faster. So fully loaded, it works in a way, that it has so many contents with it already embedded. So this a subset of fast. So what it specifies, it has so many executables and DLLs which carry or does your task what you need to code for. So it already provides those help files or the DLLs which you can directly use and get your application done. Secure, yes, it's heavily secured. It has its own security mechanism by which you can create admin users and other users. The using Django framework, you can automatically, it provides you an admin panel from where you can create your roles, privileges, and groups. So this is secured, and we will also cover the OS 10 points, how Python make sure that those points are covered in the development mechanism. So we will cover that later. Scalable, as we already explained earlier, or we already discussed earlier. It's scalable. What it signifies, you can easily integrate with other applications as well, and whenever needed, you can work on scalability point to move up to the extent you need it. So that's not very difficult with this. So this also is one of the suitable point why we should go for it. Versatile content management, scientific computing, and we already have seen so many areas where Python is heavily used. So you call it web development, machine learning, and AI projects, and visualization. So it has a vast scale of the usability. So it's used all around, right? I hope these points make sense, and please keep me posting your questions and concerns. I will try to answer them in as soon as possible. Now, since we learned, why should we go with Python, we should know its constraints also. That when should we avoid using Python, and what are the scenarios where we should not use Python. So not for smaller projects. And why it is said that the framework is heavy, means Django framework contains so many inbuilt files, and if you want to create for a 5 pager and website, it's not recommended to go to develop with Python. So Python is generally suitable for large applications, and on what scale you can like other applications like machine learning, AI applications, web development, where a vast scalability is needed, a big application. So it's just a suggestive point, but you can do that. Means even if we want to create a one pager application, we can always do that. And for sure, it's why it's said not for the smaller applications, because its framework is vast. So let's say if there are 99 features provided, and if you are using just one, so that not suggested to do, right? So from that point of view, it's said that not for smaller projects. So regular expression for URL, yes, this is one of the constraint what we have, or this is mechanism how the URLs are passed basically. So for each resource, it creates a regular expression, and based of the regular expression, it provides you the response. It maps with the the resource provider or the response provider, and it maps within regular expression. And regular expression mapping takes a bit time, so that's why it said that it's not one of the fastest language in web development what we have. So this is one of the reason why it's not much faster. So the regular expressions are used. So these are the only some constraints to explain why people should not or what are the constraints, because everything has pros and cons. So these are the cons what we have from Python. So when should we use Python? Now, finally, the point comes. We have went through what are its advantages, what are its constraints. Now we are moving ahead. When should we use Python? What type of applications? Being an architect or being the application developer, you must be thinking that when should I select Python as my technology to implement my application. So these are the points. So Python is scalable. So you have to make sure that if the application is scalable, yes, Python can be choice for that. Security is tight. So there are so many, inbuilt security mechanism in Python which you don't have to implement, and those are already implemented. So Python is popular. So you have developers, you will get resources, and this will also enhance your skills. So right now, let's say you are talking in context of your application, but yes, if you know this technology well, it can be used in other areas as well. So this can be a driving force. It is very, the Python is fast for development. So we have to make, let's say we have to create a prototype of an for an customer in 10 days or a week. So this can be a good choice, we can move ahead with it. So we have a robust frameworks available in it, we have, much helps available in this technology. And there are too many libraries available, we need not to code for everything. We have library for everything whatever we can think of, or whatever the practical, the requirements came, because this is open source and people contributing continuously for those libraries, and we already have a very strong background of libraries with this technology, right? So these are the driving forces, and I hope these points will help. And this will help us to at least shape into when should we use or when should we not, right? And now, as we covered some of the constraints, there are some more constraints also. Like it has a small pool of experienced developer compared to other languages like Java. Yes, it's said, because what happens, Python at a point of time in market, you will find a scenario that where you are not getting much developers into this technology. That's one of the points. It lacks multiprocessor support. So multi-threading support is somewhere we need to take care or explicitly manage here, because that's not truly, supportive in this technology. It's a bit slower in performance, and the slower in performance because, it's an interpreted language, and sometimes, it lacks in performance in comparison to other languages, and we will come on it. We will discuss more about it, why this is slower. So this language is not a good choice for mobile applications. Why it's that? Because as we already discussed, that the framework is very vast. Framework has so many resources. So it's a bit, expensive to load, and it's not memory intensive. So that's the reason why it said that it's not heavily, recommended for mobile applications. It has, database access limitations. Concurrency and parallelism are not designed. Python's one-line function Lambda feel quite limited when it comes to meta programming. The only reason not wanting to learn Python is that at some point you must learn JavaScript. So what happens basically, when we start learning Python, then at a point of time we see that. JavaScript is more, it's a kind of more JavaScript syntaxes in Python, and at a point of time we have to learn JavaScript because there are so many practical requirements come which cannot be handled without JavaScript, right? At that moment it specifies the syntaxes are almost same what we have in JavaScript or the other scripting language, then why should we use Python? And JavaScript also, as it's a, composite of so many other technologies. So yes, it's said that at a point of time you will feel when you move to JavaScript that yes, why I have learned Python, right? So, but yes, everything has, because JavaScript is not, JavaScript is used in all the technologies, or majorly most of the technologies. So yes, these are some of the points which we, for our sake only. But yes, the verdict is based on the practical requirement of our application. We have to wait. Where should we use Python? And we know that as we covered the other points, like the speed is the development speed is outweighs all other points. So whenever we have to develop it fast, this is open source, we do not have to pay for the licenses, and you know we have, for sure it's said that there are a lack of resources, the developers, but yes, we can easily switch a team to on Python framework because the learning curve is so steep, right? So The I hope this should have make your a bit comfortable with Python, and the core concepts must be at least we now understand what are its core concepts, and when should we use that, what are its pros, cons, and the final verdict. So now in the next tutorial on we are going to uh, come up with the core concepts, the syntactical concepts, and creating a project about frameworks. So these are the next the topics which we are going to cover in our next videos. Thank you, and keep watching. Thank you.